Hello, everybody. Jérôme here from Pricing Hub. So I'm going to host you today on our webinar number 5. We're going to speak today about consumer price sensitivity and versus competitive alignment. So basically, the topic today is how we leverage in a complex pricing strategy competition alignment versus price sensitivity. So it's a very wide topic. And there are multiple ways today to optimize the prices, but we need to make some arbitrage. And it's true that on a daily basis, what we do see is that retailers are usually oriented towards competition alignment, but they totally forget about the consumer. And at the end, the consumer is here. He's the one making the price decision, and he's the one making the action to pay. So it's really important, I think, to integrate this end consumer in your pricing strategies. So today with me we have Olivier Innocent. He's our head of customer success, and he's going to be the expert that is going to walk you through this presentation and this webinar, and we're going to try to make it interactive. So today Olivier will walk you through this. We're going to ask you some couple of poll questions. We want to make sure also that you're able to channel your questions wherever you want. So you can use the little question device and feature in the application. You can upvote those questions. And we will keep 15 minutes at the end of this webinar. So there will be 30 minutes presentation and 50 minutes Q&A, and we will answer your questions, and we can debate. Olivier, I see you're ready in a very nice environment. Do you want to introduce yourself, Olivier?
You already did, but I can do it again. So my name is Olivier. I'm the head of customer success management with Pricing Hub. I've been in the company for almost 3 years now. And in my previous experience, I discovered the e-commerce world on, let's say, an American giant. I won't give the name, but there are not that many in e-commerce.
Everybody's going to hate you if you give the name.
Yeah. And in my previous experience, I was in charge of customer success in Germany for a company collecting reviews specialized in the e-commerce industry. So today, as Jérôme mentioned, we'll address 2 different methods on how to optimize prices. And we'll see that I'm killing the suspense here, but at the end, we'll see that there's no perfect methodology. And we'll try to give you some hints about what's the best way to use them.
Yeah, so the agenda here today is like you're going to do a short introduction on the different methodologies and just give some highlights, so we speak the same language and we really align on what we're going to be talking about. Then we're going to be speaking about and focusing on the competitive alignment. What does it mean? How we deploy it? What are the pros and cons of this methodology? Then we're going to do the same thing on the consumer price sensitivity. So aka price elasticity, but we prefer to speak about consumer price sensitivity. And then we're going to see how to leverage the best of the both worlds, right? At the end, we're going to speak maybe 2 minutes on how we can help you. What are the capabilities that we do have internally? And this is the program for today. Olivier, I think the floor is yours. So can you give us a quick, can you set the stage a bit and give us a quick intro and give us some definition of what you call alignment versus competition?
Definitely. So as you can see on the next slides, yes, thank you. Just to be clear on the terminology we're going to use today, when we talk about competitive alignment, we talk about the strategy of adjusting prices versus a competitor price or a reference price. That can be, of course, the exact price of a competitor or an index or a specific price that you've modelized. And the idea, of course, is to gain or maintain a market position that's as positive as possible. The consumer price sensitivity, which is a less known methodology, but still is used by a lot of retailers, is how you're going to adjust your prices based on your understanding and on your knowledge of what we call the price sensitivity, which is how the consumers are going to respond to a price change, a variation in the prices. This is, of course, very famous in the retail industry. You've all tried to book planes and never seen the same price 2 days again in a row. But that's the same logic, and the objective behind is to maximize a specific business objective. Of course, the most obvious objective is the margin. That's the most frequent, at least for our customers, but it can be also any specific business objective you wish to attain.
Okay, thanks, Olivier. So that being said, we have a channel, a little poll that you might have access to on the bottom right of your screen. And we're going to ask you a bit a tricky question. Now that Olivier has given some definition, do you think you guys are more an alignment freak, so super competitor driven, or an elasticity freak, meaning that you are more consumer driven? So feel free to submit your vote. I will comment the results right after. So Olivier, now that you've given some kind of definitions, what can you tell us? What can you tell us about the differences and the different steps to go through those two types of pricing optimization?
Sure. So both methodologies are covered through 4 steps. As you can see on this slide, for us, step 1 and 4 are pretty similar. Of course, not exact, but have a lot of similitudes. And the step 2 and 3 are different, but you will see also along the presentation, they have some common grounds. Of course, we don't use the same tools, but they have the same logic and the same type of, let's say, of way to work. So the first step is, of course, to build your data. The second step for the competitive alignment is how to leverage your expertise. The first step is how to simulate the impact and implement the new prices, because the way you implement the prices is also a part of the optimization. And the step 4 is how you're going to monitor and steer the optimization. For the consumer price sensitivity, step 1 and 4 are similar. On the step 2, that's how and when you're going to understand and measure your elasticity. And step 3, we'll see how you're going to leverage it to achieve your business objectives that we mentioned a bit earlier. So if we move on to the next step, we'll start with the competitive alignment, addressing the 4 steps. So we've seen on the previous slide that's what they are. So already, if you can move on the following one. The first step, so build up your data hub. Thank you. So first, you want to focus on the competitor scope. Which one do you want to monitor? Do you want to monitor all of your competitors? Do you want to focus on specialists, on generalists? Are you a pure brick and mortar company? So you might want to focus on local one. Don't need to be aligned on a shop that 200 or 300 kilometers away. And if you're an online competitor, what do you take into account? Do you take into account the shipping costs? Because we've seen in some, let's say, exotic cases that you will pay an iPhone for 10 euros with delivery fees. And also, do we want to align on exotic seller or those drop shipping companies that sell the same product than you, but are delivered from far away and are not really offering the same, let's say, quality? Then you want to focus on the granularity, which type of product. Actually, sorry, we have an issue on the slide. It's the third block that should have come second. So already, sorry. Yeah. So then you want to focus on the product scope. What are the products I want to get the information? Do I need to get all my catalog? Do I want to just be aligned on a very specific set of products? And what do I do with my private labels? Can I compare with other private labels? If yes, I have to build a mapping. If not, then I cannot compare. Then the third point, which is the granularity. Do I get to look for data for all products on all competitors? Do I just specific like a scope per competitor? How do I do with the variance? The classic error when you want to align with your competitors is to say, okay, I don't care, for example, in fashion, I don't care about the different sizes. Okay, but then you know that at the end of the season, let's say the sizes at both sides, the very small sizes and the very high sizes, you will have stock. So we have your competitor that will probably destroy the price on those products just to get rid of the stock. Are you ready to break your margin on all your products because one triple XL jacket is still in stock. That's the kind of stuff we see on a daily basis. And be careful, it's not, to keep on the metaphor with fashion, it's not one size fits all. You have to define a specific behavior per categories, because of course for a jacket you don't want to change this to follow the size, but maybe on other products you have to follow the different variants. And last but not least, the frequency. Is it worth to crawl and to get data every day? Or because maybe your competitors are changing prices only once a week, once a month. We see some industries where there are prices once a quarter or once a year. So that's also very related to the category and the type of competitor. Long story short, get the data you can actually use. Otherwise, it's a waste of time and, of course, money behind. Second step, injecting the business expertise into this data. Why? That's the first question you want to ask. Why do I need to get those data, and why do I need to use them? So you need to define your goals. Are you working on the market share? Are you working on the margin? What's the scope of this activity? Is it addressed at the category level, at brand level, or you even go lower at the SKU level? Or are you going to address the new products the same way that you're going to address the old products? You have specific type of products. It's you to build your segmentation. Then the when. Are you having the same competitive landscape all day, all year long? If you are working in sport, maybe in summer you will see some supermarkets starting selling swimming pool or beach stuff. In winter, you won't have supermarkets selling skis. So you have maybe to adapt your competitive landscape based on the season. Also, do you want to follow your competitor on special occasion, Black Friday? Maybe it's your policy not to do Black Friday. We see that more and more. So if you do that, you have to pause maybe your competitive alignment during this period. And last but not least, the how. You're going to build what we call price corridors. What's the mean I'm accepting to go? What's the max I'm willing to go? And then how do you address your category mix? We talked a bit earlier about the different sizes. But what happens with the colors? I'm selling a couch. Do I want to get the red couch being priced at the same price than the yellow couch? There are different ways to address that. You can say, okay, I'm just following my competitor, so I don't care if they sell the red cheaper than the yellow. I just follow them. Or you can also say, no, for me, it's all about, let's say, consistency. So I want my customers not having to choose between two colors, because I want them to provide them with an equal price. And again, the question of private label, it's very, very important if you want to use competitive data on your private label to be able to map. Are my private labels the same quality or offering the same service than the one from this competitor? If no, do I think that I can sell them 20% more or I have to sell them 20% less? So that's where your business expertise, your market knowledge is going to make the difference. Step 3. No, that's the previous step are also very interesting, but this one is, I think, my favorite, because that's when your hypotheses are meeting the reality. So what you're going to do on this step, you're going to simulate the behavior. So you've collected your data, you've injected your business expertise. Now, what's the result? So here you're going to say, okay, if I apply this rule based on this data and this set of products, what's the price I'm going to get? Is it way cheaper than the price I'm currently offering? What's the impact on my margin? What's the impact on my member price? If I have a member price, for example, you're going to simulate exactly what happens. And then if you have the data, you're going to inject some elasticity hypothesis. Because what's the point of reducing your prices by 20% if you're not seeing an increase in sales? If it's just to show a nice graph on BFM TV or on whatever news channel, okay, it's good for marketing, but is it worth the financial investment? So here, if you have the data, you will inject some elasticity hypothesis or even some real measurement. So you see, we already start to mix both strategies.
Yeah, exactly. And Olivier, I want to step in here because you guys can have a look at the different webinars we have had on the elasticity. And what we say at Pricing Up, and I want to re-emphasize this, is that we usually leverage historical elasticity, so using the past data to predict the future in terms of elasticity, to work on the simulation. It's less accurate, but it's very good to work on the simulation. And to be frank, a simulation, a business impact simulation without taking into consideration elasticity hypothesis is a bit weak. And this is what the message of Olivier: try to consider elasticity in your simulation. And then on the other side, when it comes to daily operation and price optimization, and Olivier will discuss this just afterwards, we leverage a more experimental, contextual price and consumer price sensitivity. We measure it on the go and we use it on the go. It's two ways to approach things. But in any methodology, at some point, if you want to be accurate, you need to integrate this notion in the way you optimize your prices.
Exactly, Jérôme. Thanks. And the last aspect that can seem to be obvious, but is still a tool for you, is how do you implement the prices? Do you change the prices every day, every week? Do you have those implementation at the same time for all products? Are you updating, I don't know, your vegetable on Monday because a very famous supermarket chain is changing the prices or has a catalog on Monday? And do you need to change the prices on all products? Because you might have products to say, okay, I don't have enough volumes, for example, so it doesn't make sense for me to change it. And so if we jump to the next slide, we'll see two success factors that we see on a daily business with our customers. You have to start from what you can do and what you want to do. You don't need to have dozens, hundreds of rules, thousands of products that are crawled if you cannot, or it doesn't make sense for you in terms of repricing. So start with your needs and then build your, let's say, optimization project with the data, the rules, and the implementation policy. And second, it's obvious on the paper, but trust me, we've seen it unfortunately too often. You have a company. This company has goals. So this optimization has to reflect the goals. I chose the example of Harrods because I'm pretty sure nobody from Harrods is here, so we can talk freely. If I'm the pricing manager of Harrods, do I need to be aligned with my competition? Nobody, I think, is going to Harrods to save money, except in January when there's the big sales. You go there for the experience. You go there because it's a landmark in itself. Of course, there is not a lot of Harrods, but yes, the objectives of your company have to be reflecting in your strategy. Okay, so that's it for the competitive alignment. Now let's move to the consumer price sensitivity. So back to the 4 steps. So we still have the same first one, which is build up your data. The last one, which is the monitor and steer the optimization. We've not addressed it for the competitive alignment because for us, it's almost the same. So we'll talk about it at the end of this presentation. So step 2 is how to measure and understand my elasticity. And step 3 is to leverage and simulate this elasticity. So Aurélie, please. So here, the big difference is you have the data already. You are sit on a gold mine. You have all that you need in your own tools, in your whole cloud or whatever data system you're using. So the big objective is to combine all the data feed that you have, the transaction, the history of your transaction, the traffic, that you have the benchmark data. If you have some, it's not mandatory, but it can be useful. And to combine that with all your catalog information, that's how you're going to get gold and to get a very interesting optimization. And as always, more data is better than very good data, but still you have to get quality of data. But the more the data, the better the price sensitivity understanding, and of course, the bigger the impact and the more relevant the impact.
So Olivier, here the difference between the two data models, basically what you're saying is when it comes to price elasticity or consumer price sensitivity, you only need internal data.
Yes.
And when it comes to alignment and competition alignment, obviously you need a more or less granular external data sets that needs to be aligned with your pricing strategy, what you want to do, and your capabilities.
Exactly. That's one of the strengths of the consumer sensitivity approach is that you already have the data. You just need to put it, and it's not an easy task, but you just need to use this data. You don't need to produce new data. So how to understand the consumer price sensitivity? It's very important. The price sensitivity or elasticity, we use both terminology, has to be calculated on a wide perimeter. Remember what we said on the previous slide, the more the data, the better the output. So you have to get the sufficient granularity based on what we call the distribution channels. Do you have physical stores? Do you have multiple websites? Are you selling on marketplace, etc., etc.? The more the volume, the better. It's also based on a given context. If you have data that are 10 years old, sorry, but it's not very useful. You need to have recent data and up-to-date data so that every day when you actualize your price sensitivity calculation, it's still contextualized. It's very important. We talked earlier about seasonality. It's the same. If I have to optimize, jet skis, the price elasticity in Europe for jet skis might be a bit different between mid of August and mid of December. So that's why the context, we talk a lot about context, is very important. Another way to address context is to talk about outliers. One of my favorite example that we use is Champions League on Valentine's Day. If you are a football fan and your girlfriend is inviting you to the restaurant on the 14th of February, then if there's a Champions League, it might affect the level of reservation in an Irish pub versus, let's say, a romantic restaurant. So that's a positive, what we call special event. But also the confinement was kind of a special event. If you are a brick and mortar store, the price elasticity kind of disappeared overnight when the confinement started during the COVID. On the other way around, if you had a website or e-commerce, then you were the king of the mountain because nobody could go in any store, so you could almost sell at any price due to the lack of available stock. Another point is the product life cycle. If you remember a couple of years ago, it was impossible to get a PlayStation 5. So you could sell them and people sold them at 1,200 euros because it was not available on the market. iPhones is the same. If you are selling old iPhones, since last week, they've lost maybe 20% of their value because a new iPhone came in. And these are two examples, but there are hundreds of examples like that. So those three components, they are not the only one, but they are the most important components when it comes to having and understanding the price sensitivity of your consumers. And again, we talk about the sensitivity of the consumers, not your products. Step 3, how to leverage it. So again, you see, I didn't lie when I told you I was going to speak a lot about context. Everything that you calculate, everything that you get to optimize is valid on a specific perimeter based on a specific context. The elasticity you've measured in December for your ski is not applicable to your tires in summer. So it works really on a specific perimeter and context. And again, this context is changing, so you have to reflect it and update those prices to be always accurate, always relevant. Relevant is a very important word here. It's not right or wrong, it's relevant, because the elasticity you measured 6 months ago was correct, but it's not correct today. It doesn't mean it's wrong, it's just not accurate anymore. And the way you're going to leverage the elasticity is corresponding to a business objective constraint couple. You're going to try to optimize your margin. So you're going to say, okay, I want to get more mass margin, more gross margin, but I don't want to penalize my volumes. Or the other way around, you're going to say, okay, my main objective is to increase my market share, so I'm okay to reduce my margin, but I don't want to go below a certain threshold of margin because I still have to keep the lights on. So again, context and objective constraint management. These are the keys about, yes.
So Olivier, here there's some kind of similarities at the end between a pricing and a price optimization that is consumer centric versus a price optimization that is competitive centric. In both cases, you need to be able to iterate very quickly. In one case, in the consumer centric part, you need to be able to iterate because what you have learned is contextual and the behaviors of your clients finally are changing over time. And on the competition side, basically, it's your competition that is driving your iteration.
Yes.
Competition change the price, so then you need to align and you need to iterate anyway. So
Yes.
in both cases, we don't like to speak about dynamic pricing, but you need to have an ability to change your prices when it's relevant and when it makes sense.
Yes, and at the end, it's not the pricing you're updating; it's the elasticity that's updating itself. So here we noted two key success factors. Is the first one is exactly what you mentioned. It's that you have to get frequent update of your elasticity, and if the elasticity remains the same, you don't need to have a lot of changes in prices. If there's a change in the elasticity, sorry, due to the context or the product life cycle, then it will have an impact on your prices. But that's maybe the biggest difference between the two methodologies, is that when you're in a competitive alignment, the prices is driving the optimization, but when you are in consumer price optimization, it's the optimization that's driving the prices. And a topic we didn't mention, but that's very important, it's the cannibalization. If you have decided to optimize the margin on your iPhones and the volumes on your Android phones, it's going to get into conflict, because at some point the price of the iPhones are going to be so high and the prices of the Androids are going to be so low. It's a bit cliche, but yeah, it happens. That at some point people are going to say, okay, I wanted to buy an iPhone, but this Android is 30% cheaper. I go to the Android. And yes, and we see that in a lot of categories and not just the smartphone ones.
So how then this cannibalization topic? How do you address it when you optimize prices?
You have to get all the product that can cannibalize themselves in the same perimeter of the optimization. We talk about segments, but you have to get them with the same objective and slightly same constraints. For example, you can say, I want to optimize the mass margin of all my smartphones, but I can have some difference in the constraint that I have. I need a higher unit margin for my iPhones, and I can accept a lower unit margin for my Androids. And then you have some slight adjustments, but still they are going in the same direction. Thank you, Ori. Yes, so step 4. So as we said earlier, it's the same approach for both methodology. First one is you have to define the KPI. You have to be careful, because depending on the KPI you're going to choose, the result of the optimization can be positive or negative. The optimization itself will be the same, but the way you measure it is going to be completely different. So do you want to choose a business KPI, your price image, if you have a definition, the price index, the evolution of your market share? Do you want to choose a pure financial impact, what's the year-over-year change in revenue or in margin? Or do you want to identify the impact of your pricing? And then you have to build, in pricing, we call that the value creation. You have to build the KPI to reflect and isolate the impact of the sole pricing activity. And then when it comes to steering, it's pretty simple. In competitive alignment, once you've chosen and monitored your KPI, you say, okay, based on the evaluation of those KPIs, of course, you can have several of them. You don't need to choose just one. I will fine-tune my crawling requirements because I notice that I'm missing this one or I need a bigger frequency. I will adjust my rules because I was too aggressive or not enough aggressive on some categories. When it comes to consumer prices, it's consumer sensitivity, sorry, you have several options. You have to increase or decrease your objectives or change them because you say, okay, I wanted to make some margin on those products, but actually I see that there's a lot of competition. It's better for me to move to volumes. My constraints were too high. I wanted to get some very high unit margin. It's not compatible with the elasticity I'm measuring. And again, the elasticity is driving your choices, not the other way around. And then the segmentation. I told, okay, I want to get the same prices for all my stores. But then when I look at the behavior, I see that my stores in the city center, again, let's go with cliches today. People in the city center, they have more money. People in the countryside, they have less money or there is more competition. So the price elasticity is different for those consumers. So we say, okay, I accept to have a different price between my supermarket in the countryside versus my small corner in the city center. So long story short, you have to be adaptable and flexible.
Just if we go back to I have a comment on your APIs and the monitoring part, because I think it's super important. What we try to do at Pricing Hub is to make sure that we isolate and measure the impact of the pricing activities, right? And this is why we're focusing on financial KPIs, because the financial KPIs, volume, revenue, margin, is something that we can measure very quickly and we can iterate very quickly. So we can update them on a daily basis. But if you compare that to the business KPIs, you've mentioned here, usually they take time to measure. So the price index, you can have it quite quickly, but if you want to have a good solid price index, usually you need to wait on a monthly basis to have more data. Price image is very long to measure, and it's what Olivier has written is very important. Price image and price index are totally different stories, totally different KPIs, and we too often hear, I want to be protecting my price image, and the way I look at it is via my price index. That's a big mistake. It's two different things. So those business KPIs, they are really long shot monthly things. So to optimize, we really like to use the financial KPIs. I think that's a key point.
Yes, totally, Jérôme. Okay, now which method to use? We have a couple of minutes left. So first of all, each method is answering to a different set of needs. With competitive alignment, you're mostly looking after efficiency. When it comes to consumer price sensitivity, you're going to look at long-term financial impact, because again, you're leveraging an existing situation. You're not waiting for an external output. So when it comes to operational needs in a competitive alignment method, you want to as fast as possible, as efficiently as possible, adjust prices based on an external output. Of course, you can have internal baseline, but let's be honest, you want to align versus your competitor, not your costs. And what are the strategic needs behind that? Because you don't just do that to get a nice graph. You're answering to a competitive pressure on specific products. What are your drivers, the top sellers, or maybe a specific focus in a store? You have a store next to the beach, so you want to be the cheapest when it comes to ice creams. So you want to be sure that all your competitors around are crawled and are focusing like that. And you need to immediately change the prices on the biggest inventory possible per category. So it's really an efficiency objective. when it comes to consumer price sensitivity, you want to leverage the consumer price sensitivity. So you have an objective, you started with your objective, and you want to get to your objectives in the best possible way without having a negative impact on your business. So those objectives are mostly manage your P&L, get a specific focus on margin on a category. And also, let's be also pragmatic. You don't have data, competitor data on all the categories. So what do you do if you cannot get data on 20, 30, 40% on your inventory? You're just saying, okay, I don't know if it's the good price, but I don't have competitors, so let's flip a coin and hope it's work. No, that's also the strength of the consumer price sensitivity approach, is that you don't need external data. We already mentioned it, but really, I repeat again, you don't need to get external data. You just need to rely on your internal data. And if you go to the next slide, please, Ori. So this one, we'll send you the presentation afterwards so you can have a look. But just in 2 points, competitive alignment, the biggest advantage is you really secure your price index. Once you've defined what's your baseline, what do you want to do, and what's your main competitor, you will always remain at this price index. And that's also the biggest inconvenience, is you're really waiting for your competitors to start a price war, and you will be, let's say, the victim of this price war. And I lived that in my previous life. We knew that we had a French competitor. Their big game was to lower the prices just 2 days before Prime Day or Black Friday, so they started a war before the beginning of the promotion campaign. So that was completely killing the effort of the team, and you had to answer because you didn't want to be depositioned. So that means you're just waiting for your competitor to drive your margin down or your prices down. You don't have this risk on the consumer sensitivity, because the biggest advantage is that you're generating value and protecting margin on the long term, and your value creation is sustainable over time. It's not going to be a 2-week green and then becoming red over the next month. It's really sustainable over the long time. The limitation of that is that it's a massive change in the way you're working. So you're basically telling your colleagues that they are not going to define the price anymore. They're not going to look at the competition anymore. And that's, of course, you can change it, but it sometimes needs a strong change management, and it's not that easy. So if there's one, let's say, challenge to have with this approach, is this one.
Yeah. To be frank, out of 20 clients, we only have 2 clients that are not using competitive data, if more or less, no, if I'm not misled, Olivier. All the rest, they use a mix of both, because it's very hard to say internally, guys, you don't need to look at the competition. I mean, that's not reasonable, let's say.
Yeah. And so if you go to the final slide, really, no, that's not this one. You have to update the presentation, I think. That's not this one.
Yeah, the final slide tells you basically that an efficient pricing strategy is a combination of the both approaches. It's not you do this or this. It's really a combination of using consumer price elasticity in combination of pricing alignment, depending on different factors. So
exactly. So you remember we talked about price corridor. So you're going to build a min and a max, and you're going to define objective and constraint. And you see that, that's this one. And you see this quadrant. The bigger the gap between max and min and constraint and objective, the better it is for the consumer price sensitivity. The smallest the gap, the more adapted it is to the competitive alignment. So it is not a perfect answer. It can be different. Of course, you can accept some different constraint on a category, some different objective on a category, but the metric is this one. If you don't accept to move your prices, and we don't talk about 20% changes. It can be 5 or 6% changes. But if you say, okay, my mean is 100 and my max is 102, you're not ready to go to the price sensitivity optimization.
But to put it in a more pragmatic and operational way, I think a good key of entry to make an arbitrage between price optimization with a competitive driven or consumer driven is to look at your product segmentation. No, basically your product segmentation. If you have a big runner, a big driver, like that, a product that is selling a lot of volume, most likely, unless you're the only one to offer it on the market, which is probably the MDD marque de distributeur case. You're gonna want to be aligned with the competition and the market. And on the long tail, on the other products, maybe you have more leverage, and you would be very keen to be optimizing on using the price sensitivity. No, so
Exactly.
Also like you need to have different criteria and entry points. Product segmentation is an entry point to make an arbitrage.
Exactly.
Okay, so moving on, maybe Olivier. So the question now is how can we help you? And I think Pricing Hub, we're a SaaS application, right? And we do that on daily basis, and we help you make those arbitrage. In what cases do we need to use the rule based, and in what cases do we need to use the target based? So the way we work with you guys is when we onboard you, we have a solution design phase where Olivier's team are speaking to you, understanding your strategy, your data capabilities, your constraints, and what you guys want to do. And then we will help you make a bit of an arbitrage whether we want to be optimizing those and those products on the rule-based part and those products or pricing channel on the target-based part. So this is really Olivier's work on day-to-day basis to be helping you to make those arbitrage. And within the application, we have the both capabilities. I think this is the main point of this.
Exactly. So that's the job of the team to make sure that we support you to reach your objectives and not choosing a method for the sake of having a method in place. So if you have any questions.
Yeah, so maybe before the question and the Q&A session, we want to launch the last poll. So if I come back to the first poll, I don't have the results. So I'm not sure. Yes, I have the result. When it comes to pricing elasticity, are you more an elasticity freak or an alignment freak? I'm happy to see that we have 75% of the respondents that answered elasticity freak. I think it's really because we have a we have a very small poll, a very small number of respondents. And then we can launch the second poll. And the questions is what share of revenue could you optimize using a consumer price sensitivity? 0, because you think your strategy is to be super aligned with the market. 25 to 50%, 51 to 75% of the revenue, or all the revenue could be optimized using price elasticity. So don't hesitate to submit your vote. And now, should we have any questions? But I don't have any question at this stage. So maybe no Q&A for you, Olivier. Yeah. You are super clear. That's why.
I know. Next time I'll be less clear, so we have more questions.
Okay, so everybody, thank you very much. As a reminder, you will be able to have access to the replay of this webinar, so you can review it and you can share it. So you can review it later. We have other related webinars that can be interesting. One on price sensitivity measurement that is available on the LiveStore platform. We have another one also on the performance measurement and the value creation measurement, which is a key topic. Don't hesitate to go and have a look at them. Should you have any questions, you can contact Olivier on his email address. Maybe next slide. And that's about it, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.